What is up, you guys? It is Alessandro Koenig, and we're on Conan's Cave. Today, we have a special guest with us, Dylan.
What's up, baby? Let's get after it, man.
Let's get after it. So today, we're going to be just talking about Dylan's career, everything he goes through, adversity that he's gone through as well, that has really pushed him to be the better version of himself, and really just the future of his business and where that's going to take him.
Yeah.
So Dylan, what's your passion? What gets you up in the morning?
Yeah, bro. People like you, man, they're following their passion. People like you that love what they do, right? That follow what's in their heart, where they're placed on earth, and keep growing and keep going, right? So, I mean, man, my intention is to empower, equip, and affirm. Empower people for what I see inside of them, equip them with what they need to get from point A to point B, and then affirm them and hold them accountable through the process. So, that's simply what I'm passionate about.
I love that. And what do you do for a living, and why is this so impactful for your life, and why did you choose this career path?
Yeah, I love how you said what I do for a living, because it's not the typical route of like a career path. It's very untraditional, which is where I was born and raised in a traditional route, which is go to school, get the career, get the degree, get the job, whatever the journey. And I took an entrepreneurial route pretty quickly. And what I do now is, I guess, just basically in the coaching space. I do leadership development, culture training, personal development for individuals, and then culture training for teams, sales teams, mostly. I can do pretty much any team, whether it's a corporate team, a leadership team, or, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the main focus. My business is Elite Leadership Solutions. So that's the business name. And I just try to be a solution for elite leaders, right? Take them from average to elite, help them grow personally in their personal life so they can thrive professionally. And so how I do that is a certain process that I go through, depending on where they're at. If they're an individual, it'd be more like, hey, here's a 90-day process. Before that 90-day process, we customize everything that they do to a T, so that when they know where they're at, they know where they're going, but they also know who they are and who they want to become, distinguishing those two. And that identity piece, man, once they come in that identity, it hits we hit the ground running, right? So create them the roadmap through the 2-day intensive, and I've, that process, and then that 90 days is accountability and action. So it's not like, hey, here's my coaching program, here's my philosophy. It's more like, hey, where are you at? Where do you want to be? Let's find that out. Let's find out who you are, who you need to become, and let's get you there.
Right. That's such a good direction for a lot of people, because sometimes people are too ambitious for their own good. They have a passion, but they don't know where to go with
direction.
It. Yep.
That's why I say let's grow, right? Let's grow. If people say let's go, it's like, hey, that's cool. Well, where are we going? Is it in alignment with where you want to go? Which, if you know where you're going, you're growing.
Are we following the right steps to get there, right?
100%.
Do we have the right coaches that are going to teach us the right things to get us to where we want to be? And that's so important. That's why it's such a need, just like, real estate. Yeah. It's like people need this service in their life.
This is what I like to say as people before you, behind you, and around you, right? The people before you, you're following, you're learning from. The people behind you, that's who you're impacting. That's who you're influencing. And the people around you are the people that are in your corner cheering you on, and keeping you going and keeping you fueled, so that you can, keep making that impact and that influence and learning and growing, man.
Exactly. What's the hardest thing you've ever gone through in your life that's really pushed you to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, hardest thing I've ever gone through. That's deep. That's kind of a dark space. So if you're cool going there, we'll go there.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually so this was post basketball. So I played collegiately, played overseas in New Zealand and Puerto Rico. Basketball wise, after basketball, I got into business. When I made that transition, I also got married. I also, had to find a new job, had to find a job. I never had really a job, outside of basketball. So I had to find that. And then, where I was going to live, all that, the new seasons, transitions from, when that ball runs out of air, it's like, what's next? Who is Dylan also? It's not like the actual aspect of being a basketball player. It's also like, okay, I'm tall, but I don't have a basketball in my hand anymore. Like, who am I? So when all that kind of, the ball ran out of air, so to speak, is what I like to talk about. I talk about in the book I'm writing. And so I like, in that dark season, man, I was like, who is Dylan? Where is he headed? How is he going to get there? Like, all these questions started popping up. And so it came to a point, one specific moment, where I just, like, my mind was racing so fast, man, that my body couldn't keep up with it. And I got delusional. And I thought I was a man of faith, so I thought I was in heaven. So I was like, I thought literally the world ended, and I was just like, life was over, right? So literally, I was delusional, and long story short, I actually ended up in the mental hospital, man, and completely confused, completely like just lost, man, and dark. And so doctor looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Hey, you have a mental health diagnosis." From then on, like my life shifted. It didn't change. It just shifted. I had to shift my mindset, right? And not let that outcome or that letting that label or that, identifying with that. It was, I had to acknowledge it, but I didn't accept it. Right. And so when I acknowledged it for what it was, I was able to overcome it through over time. Right. But basically, like the depression, the suicidal thoughts, the weight gain, like all that, I got up to, 100 pounds heavier than I was when I was, at some of the peak shape. I was living in the backyard of my mother-in-law's house, barely had a job. We couldn't even pay my mother-in-law like $200 in rent. That was rent, utilities, that was gas, that was food, like all of that. And we couldn't even do that. Right. So it was like very dark, very challenging season. And, through that, I had to like find a coach. Like, I had a basketball coach. I got to find a life coach, bro, because I don't know how the heck I'm going to do this. So that's where, the journey started of like finding a coach, finding a mentor. Found him in New Orleans, Louisiana, at a conference out there. In that season, dude, we had $200 in the bank actually. And I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, I feel like God's coming to go to this conference." She's like, "What do you mean?" Actually, she didn't say, "What do you mean?" She's like, I could tell she's like very supportive, but like interesting, because she's not really used to the personal development world, but she trusts me, right? And so we went all in on me as the leader of the house. I don't know what, no, but got me there. The hotel literally cost $200, so I spent the $200 on the hotel room. The ticket was free. I got it from a buddy, named Andy V. He hooked me up with that. But from there, man, I met my guy, Coach Michael Burt. He's a former women's championship basketball coach, Coach Grant Cardone, coached a lot of different guys, spoke on the 10X stage, and really high level influencer. I mean, the guy gets paid $1 million for his one-on-ones sometimes. So learned from him because he has that basketball acumen and that basketball background. And so I was able to take that into the business world and execute. So I literally, we talk about faith. Like I literally felt clear as day, like I was called to go pro in basketball. Now it's time to go pro in business. So, that's where I launched and that's where I kind of lifted off. But I don't want to give all into my story, but I think to answer your question, man, that was definitely a dark part of my story.
Nice. And then tell us about your book. You said you're working on writing a book.
Yeah.
How's that been going so far?
Yeah, going great. It's definitely a long process for anyone who's written a book or wants to write a book. People who have written a book know what it is and how it is and the process. If you really want to, it's yours, right? It's your writing, your thoughts, your words, based on your actions. And so it's like you want it to be special. You want it to be, set apart and stand out to you and look at, when you read it, you want it to be about you, right? Not just like copying someone else's life or story. So it's called Built to Lead. Built to Lead is it's the 7 steps to stewarding power. And how you steward the power is how you show up. And I won't go all 7 and stuff, but it's Built to Lead. And it's, people, you kind of hear the saying, like, are you born a leader or built to become a leader kind of thing. And I think it's over time you're built to lead as long as you steward the power. And power of authority, power of leadership stuff. So it's exciting. It's been a 7-year process, dude. I spent 7 years, crafting the outline. I haven't even written it. So I'm actually getting a ghostwriter. He's a pretty well-known guy in influencer space, in the author space. And he's, as of last week, I think I got a guy who's going to get me hooked up with him and start him doing the ghostwriting process and then get it published and get it out there. So timing is always perfect, man. I've been really, one of my words is stewardship. So I may be saying that a lot and people are like, what the heck does stewardship mean? One of my clients asked me that and he's like, what does that even mean, bro? It's just basically managing your assets, right? Managing what you have and stewarding well, right? So that's it's a little bit about the book. Built to Lead, man.
What does the future look like for your business? Like, Are you trying to add anything?
Yep.
Are you trying to do anything that's new as far as an extension to add more value?
I mentioned the one-on-one side a little bit. the other side is the leadership training, the culture training, helping teams grow collectively as a unit, as well as individually as people, so they can show up better for their team. If it's sales team, whatever. But I think I'm wanting to get more in that executive coaching, executive leadership. So, there's a book called Traction. It's got the EOS system in it. So it's an implementation system where you basically take your mission, purpose, value, core values, and then you tie it into like your 5-year all the way to your like 90 days. So I have a very similar process. It's called the Vision Value Integrator. So it's integrating the vision of the company, the mission, the purpose into the core values. And then how do those two collide or collab? And then how does the company execute all the way down to the janitor, right?
Okay.
So it's like, how does everyone buy into the vision? How do we align our values? How do we act in one accord? Who's the point guard? Who's the power forward? Who's the center? Who's the, whatever it may be, and find those roles. And then who has the strengths and execute on everything. So it's aligning all of that into one arrow and one aim. So that I think like I kind of bring all the pieces of the gun, if you will. You have the gunpowder or whatever, the ammo, you have the barrel. So I'm like basically building this for them, and then they just pull the trigger and we shoot off, right? So Vision Value Integrator is kind of that process and that system. And so through that, I want to license that to other companies that are small businesses. So anywhere from 1 employee to 10, really, it's kind of that sweet spot. Because Traction really dominates that anywhere from like 10 to 1,000. But there's a really small part of like small businesses that have 3 or 4 guys on the sales team. They have this stuff built out, but they need that acceleration and that integration between their vision and values. So process is to license that, start doing some consulting there. I hate the word consulting because a lot of people just use it to use their experience or their knowledge, but I'm really there to kind of like what I was talking about, the coaching side of things, right? Like find out where you're at, where you're going, and how to get there, and then coach you through it, right? Consulting, I feel like, is a more higher than, and I'm more of a coach. So it's just not a less than, but it's like I'm coming from a posture of servant leadership, right? What do you need? This is about you, not me. It's kind of my take, but yeah. So diving into that, and then start acquiring, percentage of companies, helping them grow, providing value in that, helping them grow the revenue essentially, and having a sharp sales team that's dialed, that's strong, and that is not only savages personally, but also professionally.
That's incredible, man. It creates more efficiency. It seems like you're just trying to drive more efficiency towards your business.
Yeah, and that's where the passion is. There's also the real estate side. I've had a real estate background, so been doing that for real estate consulting, kind of sales for about 4.5 years under a guy named Pace Morby. So Pace is he has almost like 2,300 rentals at this time.
Wow.
And he's gone from pretty much ground zero all the way up. He's done it himself, and he's really a solid. I say himself. It's kind of started his focus, and then he's built his community and stuff, and so help them. Now going from a $100 million company, started at ground zero really on the education side, to helping them kind of in the leadership and stuff, and then now doing it on my own. So through that process of the education, I learned real estate. I learned investing in real estate, and really excited about that. Vision there is to have 5 kids, 1 investment property for each kid. So when you talk about legacy, kid turns 18, hey, here's your house in Denver. Here's your beach house in California, wherever it is, So definitely a heart there for real estate is to leave that legacy through real estate, but also have places for our family to travel and to vacation in, and 5 different parts of the country. And so yeah, dude,
that really is creating a legacy right there. That's incredible. You're saving for not only your future but your family's.
That's what it's all. If it's all about me, man, I'm lost.
Exactly.
Which it used to be. That's why that identity, when the ball ran out of air, was all about me. And when it ran out of the air, dude, I was like, who was Dylan?
Right.
So,
and now for the last question, the one that people have been waiting for, religion. All right. So
sure.
How has your religion really?
They don't know they're waiting for it, but they are.
There we go.
Yeah, dude.
So how has religion really impacted your life? Like having God, because I know like maybe at one point you didn't have God into your life, and then you added him into your life, and just everything changed. I know that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
So tell me your experience with that.
it's kind of interesting because God's always there, but are we always listening, right? He's always speaking. Are we always listening? And I think we cut him out of our lives. He doesn't cut us out of his life, right? And so, he's our Father. He's our Heavenly Father. So I took it from a perspective early on as a transactional religion, really, not a relationship, which you hear sometimes religion versus relationship. But truly, what it means for me, man, is like, I was just checking the box. I was, I'd go to pray to receive something, or I'd go to, do something good for something to receive something, or it was, I would give or tithe to get more money back, or I would go, feed the homeless so I could feel better about myself. There's the intentionality behind it was not there, right? So, when I really realized I was doing it for me and not him, and to glorify him, my creator, the person who created me, then it really shifted my mindset. So it became a relationship. It's like, God, I don't want it unless you're in it. I don't want to be here unless you're with me. I don't want to do this unless you're with me. I don't want to do this unless your anointing and covering and protection and health and strength is over me, right? Like even coming on this podcast, dude, like I'm like, God, if you're not in it, I don't want to be there, right? I mean, we had to, take round 2, right? And I'm like, Lord, show up. Like I want to be able to save people a lot of headache and challenges and trauma and heartache that align with my story, right? You said it, man. I'm not here to like preach or, I'm here to teach based on what I've learned, right? Mm-hmm. A teacher teaches on what they've learned. And so that's simply what Jesus did, right? He's the ultimate teacher. He's the GOAT of teaching, because he asks a lot of questions, and that's when someone knows their stuff, is they ask questions. So anyways, dude, I think like, early on, like I said, it was a religion. It wasn't a relationship. Got into college. Before college, I kind of came into this awakening. Like I'd had the junior, senior year partying, basketball, whatever of high school. And, a lot of transactional relationships, even here on earth, even with girls, right? So it was like that, just kind of lostness and very egotistical, making it all about me. And so that was kind of the point where I started to shift and gaze like, all right, like it's not all about Dylan and like how can he serve, how can he help, how can he like make it more about others and be collaborative. I earned what was given to me, but it wasn't just like, hey, here you go. I had to earn it, right? And that basketball scholarship, that full ride, everything was good there. So when I got to college, it was like, all right, I'm here to play ball. So through that, I did make it all about me freshman year, until there was this hole and void in me, dude, that I couldn't like fill. It was alcohol, it was sex, it was, pornography, it was whatever it was, right? To fill that void and that hole. And the only thing that really filled it was when I was completely on my face and in my dorm room. And I was like, Lord, I'm tired of being a boy. I'm ready to be a man. Like, show me what it is to be a man. And he said, well, rise up. And so I stood up, and he's like, the next one, I said to him, I said, God, like the next one I meet, like, let it be the person I marry, not just some random person, or like, I want the one, right? Protect my eyes. Didn't know that was going to be the next day of Bible study. So I randomly went to this Bible study. My buddy invited me, and, met my future wife there the next day, and didn't know it that's a whole long story, but that was one thing that was for me a huge void that I kept trying to fill that with, was the transactional relationship with a female. And when I had that experience and that encounter with someone who was grounded, who was gracious, who was loving, and who was different, then I locked in, bro, and I stewarded that well. And it was a great, relationship with wifey and I. We started, this was 10 years ago. So we started, talking, hanging, growing together, reading the scripture, whatever. And that's really when I felt like walking with her was almost like walking with God, because it was like that love and that growth. So it was a beautiful picture, and that's how, it really lifted off and launched for me. So end up getting rebaptized. That's a whole funny story, man. At college, like we were at a Baptist college. I was the first person that got baptized on campus, and we were at Baptist college. So when it talks about religion, and when it talks about like things like that are, dude, Jesus doesn't hurt people. The church hurts people, right?
Right.
And so that's why I want to restore that perspective of Jesus, and be able to be that light, or essentially in the dark places, because he was that light in that dark place when I was in that room with in the mental hospital with, I'm walking around with people who've, tried to slit their necks, tried to drink bleach, tried to, hang themselves like in those surroundings, and just completely lost in dark, dude. And the only person that gave me hope and light was Jesus, man. So I know that's kind of a long answer and kind of bouncing around, but that's just a little bit of the story and the trajectory. It's kind of like when I met my bride, I kind of met Jesus and met Jesus through my bride, right? She was the light in me that I needed to slow me down, to ground me, to have gratitude and grace. Yeah, brother.
I like how you talked about how you used to pray and expecting stuff in return. Like that's, like this is such a common trend with like reading the scriptures, stuff you can apply to life. Like it's not just about the Bible. Yeah. It's like if you apply this to any social situation, 100%. You'll become a better person, right?
Bro, read a proverb a day. There's 31 proverbs in Proverbs. Read Proverbs 1 on day 1. Read Proverbs 2 on the second day of the month, and so on, and see what happens in your life. Book of wisdom.
What I learned is that when you pray to God, the blessings he gives you is adversity. And that's the best thing that he could ever give you because it helps you grow. Sure. If he gives you what you want, you're not going to grow from that.
Sure.
It's like instant gratification. It's like going up to your mother and like begging her for the iPhone and she just gives it to you. Yep, right. Or she says, no, you got to work for it. And you develop a skill set and you realize a passion through that. Yeah. Yep. It's like, holy crap, now I get the iPhone and I get to do what I love for the rest of my life.
And the beautiful thing is he gave you that skill set.
Yeah.
He's just wanting you to grow in it.
Yeah. Well, he expects a lot because with much is given, much is expected, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So when you're given a gift like that and you're talented, it's like you're expected to work your ass off. Yeah. And the talented people that don't work their asses off, they get outbeat by the hard workers every time.
You think of the parable of the talent. The guy was given, I think they were all given a certain amount of talents, right? One guy buried his, one guy completely invested his, and the other guy invested his a little bit. And the guy comes back and he's like, all right, who stewarded the money that I gave you, basically? And the guy that, basically invested his first, he doubled. And so the second guy, kind of similar thing. But the third guy, he goes to the guy and said, hey, dude, I buried it. He's like, all right, be gone, basically. And so that's the whole story of like, us. How do you steward your time, your talent, and your treasures? Right. Those are the 3 T's, man, that you can really focus on, like you said, growing in. That's why I have my 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finances, and fuel. So how are you growing in those 5 areas? And if you are, you're thriving. Right. If you're not, you're dying and you don't know where you're going.
David Goggins told all of Instagram this crazy story about his weight loss journey and him going through all those battles in his past. And he thought, and this was the biggest thing he had to think in order to get him to flip that switch, right? He's like, imagine you're in heaven, right? And God has this huge whiteboard. And he's like, you're supposed to do this, this, that. You're supposed to be a badass Navy SEAL. You're going to impact the world. You're doing that. You're doing this. But you didn't live up to it.
Sure.
So he's like telling you like what you could have been, but because you were lazy, because you thought you were talented and above everybody, you didn't get there, right? So when I heard that story, I was like, I'm not working hard enough, right? So whenever I get in a moment of like, maybe I'm exhausted or maybe I'm working out and I'm balancing my life, I tell people or tell myself like, no one's making you work out. No one's making you do a podcast. No one's making you work for any companies. You're doing this yourself. You're running a business. I knew that by running a business, it was like personal training. It was going to hold me accountable, opposed to a 9 to 5 where you can just quit. You can be like, all right, bye. In a business, there's no quitting. There's no like, oh, I'm tired. It's like you started this. You're going to finish this shit. And if you don't, you're screwed. You're either bankrupt, you're broke. Like you have to get this done. So I knew like jumping into that like lava, so to say, was just going to improve my thick skin and make me a lot harder in life. And like, that's the individual I'm becoming. And I'm really proud of myself for that. But I also, analyzing people like yourself who've been in the game longer, right? That's another thing I test to it. I study people. So like, that's my biggest advice to everybody. Like if you want to emulate another person's success, study them, see how they got there, right? Understand that person. Like David Goggins, that was probably one of the bigger, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee. Those 3 people, once I understood their values, their morals, and why they had so much popularity in their life, it was game over.
Yeah, it's influence, right? And I think I would add to that saying, don't study the person, study their skill sets. Because if you study their skill sets, you'll add those into your tool belt. but you won't idolize them. Because if you idolize them, then when they pass away or when they fall or fail, like, you're kind of screwed, bro. Study their skill sets and where they're strong at, where they're blessed with.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you study a person for what they do instead of who they are, then you'll try to do what they do and you'll fail. You're trying to chase the outcome instead of the process to get there. And, you know, I think it's just very important to realize that we are our own people. We're created with everything we need. We just have to learn from those who've already done it and take it as our own, to put in our tools in our own tool belt. So
I love that.
What I thought, man.
Right. It's like understanding the system behind these skilled individuals, because the system is like easiest system to understand.
Yeah.
There's no easy way out.
Right.
Like that's relative to every millionaire, right? Once you find the pattern in every millionaire and how they got to their success, then you can create your own version of that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's right.
And that's what, like, when you told me that, that's what I was thinking in my head is like, figure out that system and expand on it, because there's no easy way out of that system.
No.
It's a complicated system you have to discover,
No.
whether it be with podcasting, going viral on social media, running a coaching business. They all have systems behind them that people like Andy Elliott blew up on, you know?
Yeah. So that's the thing, like with, you say the system, like I think there's a difference between system and structure, right? Like people have certain systems and you add that to your own structure, right? Like I'm not going to copy a person's system and structure. Like it's kind of like sales, right? Like everyone has their, I should say styles, right? Styles and structure. You add a person's style to your own structure and formulate it and make it solid, and know who you are and whose you are. And that way you're grounded. Right. So, I mean, yeah, dude, I think like, I was thinking about this actually as you were talking. What's your thoughts on ego? What is your meaning of ego?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing is having an ego could mean that you view yourself as just above people because of a certain skill set that you acquire, that you don't feel like you don't have to work as much as other people because you're above them. Entitled. So to me, it's more of like an entitlement type of thing, right? Having an ego is entitled, whereas like being humble, like opposite of having an ego is like somebody who's willing to give back to others and not expect anything in return. Right. Which is like probably the biggest thing that got me to where I'm at in my business. Like I gave out so much free work. And at first I did expect stuff in return. I'm not going to lie. We all do. Right. But then you get used to it and you're like, I'm still doing this because I love this.
Yes.
And I just proved to myself that I'll do it for free.
That's what I meant right there, bro, about, following Jesus. Right. I didn't do it to receive. Did it because I loved him. Coach Dar, shout out to Coach Dar. She's a solid person that I've really connected with and know well. She said ego means edging God out. Anyways, that's kind of that concept of like putting me before him, and who am I to put me before him, because he put him before me so that he could solely give his heart and soul for me, right? And his life for me, so that I can have eternal life back with him.
Right.
You take yourself as a leader, make sure that people are following you and you're influencing them, not doing it to influence and bring yourself up, right? I just really I've really learned that the hard way of like, I'm doing it to be a leader, when leader is kind of putting yourself on the front line, bro, of a war, right? You're leading by experience and you're leading by example. And everyone should be passionate about leading, because you lead yourself to lead others, right? It's an overflow. And that servant leadership starts with us taking ownership, figuring out like where are we at, where are we strong, where are we weak, having the people around us that are strong in those areas where we're weak. And that's the whole power of mentorship and coaching, man, is to surround yourself with those like-minded people around you, but having those strong, solid savages before you, and then serving and influencing the people behind you, man.
And that wraps it up for Conan's Cave. Thank you so much, Dylan, for sharing your story and really opening up to us and teaching us some great value. We really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Blessed to be here. For those that want to stay in contact or connected, I'm on Instagram. It's at DILLONPOLLARD_. My link tree is in there that has all my like previous podcasts I've done, my website, just ways to stay in contact, man, because it's not about me, it's about him, and it's for them. So let's grow.
Until next time, guys.
Later.